Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Sorry I've been away for a while, but I've been trying to fill the black hole of Corona. Still haven't managed it yet, but I thought I'd come back and see you anyway. Today I'm talking about dual core rotation, synchronizing your golf swing by a better understanding of the complexity of the body movement. So today I've got some real kind of brain food for you. What I'm talking about, I'm calling dual core rotation. And it's all about synchronizing your golf swing by understanding that you've actually got two rotational centers in your golf swing which will both positively and negatively affect one another. The main swing thought really is this turning around a central axis with your shoulders, getting your shoulders to turn in the same plane as your shaft had at the address position. And for that you need a central core, and the core or axis of your golf swing stays central and you turn around that. And that all seems very simple. But if it's all so simple, why is this supposedly the second most complex movement in sport after pole vault? Well, the reason is it's not simple. And one of the problems which actually makes it more difficult is that we're going to try and drive a rotation in the plane of the golf club with the hips, which are rotating in a completely different plane. And obviously, if you get to the stage where your upper body or the upper rotational core is influencing the lower rotational core, you start sliding with your hips. And if you get the lower rotational core influencing the upper rotational core, you start coming from out to in your golf swing. So synchronizing these two core rotations is basically key to getting the club and keeping the club on plane in the downswing and getting it with as much pressure as possible back onto the golf ball. So what is it that we're missing? Well, really it's a very complex movement, and we're talking about something like 123 different muscles working in your golf swing at the same time. So really kind of picking out the ones which are responsible for this movement is very difficult, and if I were to go through all of them, we'd be here for weeks. So what I want to do is just, as ever, try and give you a drill which will give you an idea of what is actually happening. If you take the address position and cross your arms across your chest and then rotate your left shoulder down, that all seems pretty simple. But what's actually happening is kind of a row of movements which are actually getting a bow into your spine, which is extremely important in the backswing, because I want to get the angle in my shoulders without influencing my hip action at all. So getting this bow actually allows me to turn the hips rather than to slide the hips. Because your spine is built up of vertebrae, they are passing on both rotational information and they're also passing on vertical information. So you can have a vertical influence on your hips, and that will actually get them to move incorrectly. And you can have a rotational influence over the hips, which will help them to move correctly, and vice versa. If the hips rotational movement moves into the shoulders, great, but if the vertical movement moves into the shoulders, we've got a problem. So one of the main problems happens as the start of the downswing. If you can imagine that everybody in the world has been telling you to turn your hips, then it's really no great surprise when your shoulders turn with them, not on exactly the same plane, but more or less, and that's just going to take you from the outside. So what you've got to be doing is applying pressure from both directions. That means I've got to be applying pressure to turn the hips, and I've got to be applying pressure to get the shoulders to rotate at the same time. So how do we do this? Well, if we go back to my old favourite, the move, and you think of turning back in the backswing and getting pressure on your trail instep, you've got this kind of spring feeling in your lower body. And as you release that spring feeling, you want the feeling also of your hips kind of tilting back. So we go into what we call an anterior tilt. So the bum is going away from the ball. And you feel like you're getting a little bit kind of a cupping at the bottom of your spine. That's not going to last very long, but it's imperative to help you to get this hip back out of the way as you change direction. Now that's all well and good, and I suppose if we were thinking about it, that's a little bit kind of the feeling of going on the bar stool we talked about a couple of years ago. But if I do that and just do that, my shoulder's still going to come forward. So I've got a new kind of idea for you. If you can actually think of, as you change direction and get that hip moving back, you want to also have the feeling of the trail shoulder moving down. Now, not the entire shoulder. If you just do this, we're getting back into that vertical slide. What you want to have the feeling of is just kind of the shoulder blade moving back and down as the hip moves back. So you're basically applying pressure to the upper rotation, the upper wheel here, and at the same time applying pressure to the lower wheel here. And by getting kind of both wheels being guided by their own individual muscle groups, you're actually keeping the shoulder angle while turning the hips. And this is how you can keep the club on plane. If you're having a bit of problem kind of feeling that, there's also a simple drill. If you just put the sticks or your club across your chest and then just have the feeling of kind of rocking your shoulders up and down without it influencing your hips, just left shoulder, right shoulder, then imagine being in a kayak and paddling backwards. So you can see that that exercise, especially here in this shoulder, is just basically taking that this trail shoulder rather behind me. Now imagine I'm at the top of my swing, I change direction, I get this kind of pelvis tilting forward, and I'm taking this shoulder back at the same time. You see that? So if I'm up here, you can see how that is going to immediately kind of flatten the plane of the swing and allow me then to get into this power in the legs, getting the hips out of the way, pressing through with the trail leg, and at the same time using my obliques, my side muscles here, and the latissimus to get that trail shoulder down before releasing through and going up into this extension where then the pelvis is actually going to move out and forward, and I can pull it up and around into the M position. And this is where a lot of the power is going to be generated. But if I don't go through this kind of series of movements, then I'm going to lose control of the club plane and obviously then of the direction of the shot. So if we put that all together, my backswing, I've just really got the feeling of the left shoulder or the lead shoulder pulling down, helped by the oblique muscles and the latissimus. I'm building tension on the instep of the trail leg. And then the real kind of key to this is getting this kind of feeling of releasing this tension, allowing the pelvis to tilt and pulling down just with this shoulder area. I'm not going down with the entire side of my body. I'm just getting this kind of rowing backwards feeling in my shoulder area here, which is taking care of club plane. And then I'm firing with the legs and firing with the side of my trail side to get the arms down before I then go into this extension where the arms extend through the ball and my body extends up and pulls the club up around me and gives me this kind of explosive energy through the golf ball. Yeah, I bet you're glad I've been away for a while, aren't you? this is obviously why golf is so difficult. I think we've all kind of had this feeling since they've been talking about biomechanics, of ground forces, of starting everything in the ground and then it all kind of moving up in a spiral through our body. But I have the feeling if you're going to do that, there's very little chance of keeping your shoulders on plane. It's a bit like kind of a windmill. You've got the sail going around here and you've got the grinding going around here. And if the sail starts to work on the grinder, then you're lost. And the similar thing, if the grinder were to do it, it'd just turn your windmill all the way around itself. It stays a difficult game. But if you can get this exercises done so that your body can actually feel what it's doing in the transition, getting this kind of small movement going on here and then accelerating it through, you can see how much better it helps you to turn this kind of pelvis roll, the shoulder roll, almost like here I'm tilting, here I'm rolling, and that is giving me this kind of lovely flowing round movement that we see especially by people like Rory and Tiger as they change direction, which is helping them to stay on plane, clear the hips, and accelerate through the golf ball. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed to us, then why not? And I'll be back very shortly. Look after yourselves. Hope you're all doing well. Won't be too long before I'm back. Till then, bye-bye.